Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and it's time for a philosophical chat with yours truly, because we're diving into everyone's favorite subject, AI, and naturally that means this is going to get deeper than gaming, because we're not only talking about the automation of tasks in front of you, sure, fair enough, we're talking about the automation of your own entertainment. And I sincerely think that some of the ideas Xbox is putting forward, some of them are good. But there is one idea in particular in this mixture of what they're calling Copilot for gaming that I got to see behind the scenes a day before the news broke. I wanted to wait to see what they put on the Xbox Wire, what trailers they put out, get extra context from the Xbox podcast, then sit down to deliver my thoughts. And there is one element of all this that I sincerely think is very bad for video games. Now, Xbox has said very clearly in this podcast, they said it when they were presenting all this information to us, that they're trying to collect feedback right now. So I'm going to give it to them very directly, again, that this, I call it Coach Copilot, is bad for video games. But let's not start off too negatively here, because there are some cool features that they showed off or that are currently in effect now that are good that AI can enable or enhance. One example that they show is opening up your phone saying, hey, can you reinstall Age of Empires 4 for me? They're like, sure, do you want to know where you last left off? I think with how many games are coming out, having an option to just briefly catch you up is really good. Like, oh yeah, I uninstalled this because I was playing a bunch of other games. I wanted to get back into it. I don't have the time to start up a new save file. Where was I? Gets you right back in that headspace a little bit. I thought that was cool. I also like the ability to support Play Anywhere, bringing your saves anywhere, any screen. Achievements is something they do mention here in the Xbox podcast. They don't really get quite into it, but something that myself, COG, and a lot of LSM have talked about is Xbox doing this sort of, we call it smart onboarding experience, where if I want to play more games on PlayStation, then maybe I could bring over my Xbox profile information and unlock all of the trophies on the PlayStation side of things that maybe were originally achievements for Xbox. Like that sort of thing, if AI can enable that, I think would be great. This multi-screen experience I also think is good because, I mean, I use it a lot right now. A lot of people ask like, oh, how do you review so many games? It's like, I'm not always here in this chair. Most times I'm laying in bed, streaming it to a tablet or streaming it to a handheld, or I'm playing it in my den, or I'm playing it here. So the multi-screen approach is also good. So again, I didn't want to come in too bitter here, but there is one point that I was really hanging on throughout the presentation I saw, listening to the podcast, rereading the information on the Copilot for gaming thing, and it is this coaching system that they've talked about. One line in particular that is here on the start of the Xbox Wire post that stood out to me is this. It says, quote, gaming is the only form of entertainment where you get stuck, so we want to help you get by that, end quote. And in fairness, there is a level of truth to this. If you look at completion percentages for, say, any game you've played that has a story, usually as you get deeper into the story, the percentage for people reaching the end of that wanes further and further. It's like an achievement, truly, to actually see a game that has like in the 40, 50 percentile of completion. At the same time, though, the entire point of video games since its very inception has been overcoming challenges. And when you try to inject this sort of artificial tool into a gaming experience as part of your ecosystem, I think it genuinely disrupts even the best of video game design. Now, the question you might have, which I will answer in a moment, is what's the difference between an AI tool kind of resting there waiting for you to ask the question and just going out of your way to look up a guide? To me, it's just about the deliberate choice of it all. There is a choice in both, although based on what Xbox is showing me here, it's going to be way more deeply ingrained in your gaming experience. Again, I don't mind if I'm at the dashboard, I'm like, hey, I'm in the mood for an RPG. Can you recommend the latest RPGs that have come out? And they bring up a slew of games. That's great for discoverability. It's a sea of video games out there. This is awesome, right? But I think there's a difference between trying and beating something, or at least attempting to, and then going, okay, this might be above my head. I'm going to check out this guide online, versus what you're going to see here. I want you to truly see or listen for yourself what they do with both Overwatch and Minecraft. First, let's start off with Overwatch. Listen to the example here.
Xbox Copilot prepares you for the competition.
Oh no, Echo is taken already. What should I play now?
Echo's taken, but Cassidy would be a solid pick with this team. His mid-range hit scan and Mercy's damage boost will work great on Ilio's ruins. Plus, you've done great with him on this map before.
Xbox Copilot helps you during the downtime.
How did I die so fast?
You stayed in the fight too long after your teammates were down. Great picks with your ultimate. but diving straight into Ramatra was a death sentence. Next time, retreat to regroup with your team.
Xbox Copilot is there when you have questions.
Whoa, what just happened?
Sombra hacked you, disabling your abilities, then melted you with her machine pistol. To counter her, stay near Kiriko for a quick Suzu cleanse or move unpredictably to make hacking harder.
That Sombra is annoying me a lot. I think it's time to switch heroes.
Good call. Soldier 76 could work well here since you can pressure Sombra at range and self-heal to survive her engages. Stay with your team and keep an eye on flanks.
So to my original point, how does this disrupt game design? To me, the point of Overwatch, and we have a very recent example in, say, Marvel Rivals, another hero shooter, the point of these games is to discover the kits. It's to discover the fun compositions. Like Marvel Rivals is built entirely around the idea of the team up abilities, and teams that really lean into that can see a stronger sense of chemistry and a better chance of winning. And the part of the fun of that game is learning all that over time, because games are a challenge. And as you lose and get better, even if I know in a multiplayer game that's not ideal, but I just think having a robotic voice spit out all the directives, I'm like, you should use this hero because this is what's great in the meta right now. Some people do truly care about that only, and there's like, I just want to play who's good. I don't care about that. But again, I think part of falling in love with an entertainment experience is learning as you go along, not jumping to the end of the finish line. That point is really more well represented in Minecraft, where you see what they do here.
This is my first time playing Minecraft. What should I do first?
Start by punching a tree to collect wood.
Okay, I've got some tree wood. What do I do with that?
Craft the oak logs into wooden planks by opening your inventory and placing the logs in the crafting area.
Okay, I've got some planks.
Now, craft a crafting table by placing 4 wooden planks in a 2x2 square in the crafting area. Next, craft a wooden pickaxe by placing 3 wooden planks across the top row and 2 sticks in the middle column.
Oh wait, where's my crafting table?
Your crafting table is not in your inventory. You may need to craft a new one or find it at the previous location.
Can you tell me how to get to the previous location?
I can't provide directions, but you can try retracing your steps to where you placed the crafting table earlier.
Why can't you provide directions?
I can't provide directions because cheats are not enabled in your settings.
Okay, now I've got cheats enabled. Where do I find ores?
You last saw coal ore right next to you, but a few blocks lower.
To be fair, this is one barrier they do set up here that gives me a level of optimism that there will be a switch in game. Like in this case, you could ask Copilot for tips, but if you go too far, she'll be like, look, no, you don't have cheats enabled. I can't tell you all that stuff. Those barriers are good, so I don't mind that at all. But at the same time, like the point of Minecraft to me is learning how to craft. That is the whole game. And when you remove that, then what is Minecraft? If you remove the discovery of the heroes in a hero shooter, then what is that? To me, that's not much of anything. And to be clear, because I am a content creator, they did specify in the Xbox podcast that they're going to collaborate with content creators and wiki sites out there and make sure they get a piece of the pie. So I have no horse in that race. I don't do guide content. I'm a commentator, as I'm sure many of you know. I'm a reviewer, so it's not for me like, oh man, my bag's gonna get taken here. Like, I'm here whether you like it or not. You know, I just love doing this, whether there's a paycheck or not. I'll always be here talking about it. So it has nothing to do with that. It's more so just that to me there is that borderline infiltration on video game design, discovering experience, learning the rules of the game, how you can bend them to your will, not just having the game or really the system outside of the game spit them at you, especially because it kind of takes the power away from game designers. If we take Elden Ring, which was a controversial game for many because it's this difficult game that had tens of millions of players, but at the same time, it should have been more accessible. It needs a difficulty option. Well, Miyazaki and his team are like, we don't want to do that. And it is well within their rights to be able to choose to do that. But now, as we're seeing AI progress, people have to realize that if you look at it in a vacuum, what I'm talking about probably isn't the worst thing in the world, but it gets bigger from there. If their goal is to strip away the friction, we'll call it, of playing a video game, eventually this starts to impact things like, I think as a game reviewer, immediately I'm like, I already worry about the skill issues I see in game players who actually do this for a living, and that there are just more common players out there better than most reviewers. And now we're going to give them tools to probably eventually let AI play for them. Like, oh, I'm stuck. I didn't really care about this boss at all. I'm just going to breeze right through it. How do you get an objective review about a product out of a player like that? And it's not me just imagining these things. I saw a great video from Chivo Guides where he was showing how to turn on auto driving in Forza Horizon 5 inside the game settings to grind achievements, where all you have to do is hold down the right trigger to grind races. And so he used a Joy-Con to wrap it around his controller and just let the game grind for him. We are getting to that point where Copilot for gaming isn't going to be just this, hey, figure it out for yourself. You know, we're going to give you the guide. Eventually, the next step is we're going to play it for you. And to me, I have to be very frank and say, if that is what you need to get into video games, because what Xbox is attempting to do here is lower that barrier. If that is what you need to do to lower the barrier to get people in, then the question really is, I think, for the person picking up the controller, why are you trying to play games in the first place if that clearly isn't for you? Like me, I'm awful at basketball. I got a terrible shot. I understand and I know that. I'm not asking them to change the size of the hoop. I'm not asking them to change the backboard. I'm not asking them to change the ball, how many defenders can go on me at one time. I'm not trying to change the game of basketball because I'm awful at basketball. I know I'm not a good basketball player. So why is gaming always seemingly trying to compromise itself to get more people into it? And I say that more so because when I look at very popular games, these are very recent examples. Elden Ring, we've stuck on a lot. Let's talk about Baldur's Gate 3, another uncompromised game. Like, I was worried that Baldur's Gate 3 wouldn't hit the level of popularity that I think it rightfully deserved way before it finally did get that viral moment. I was worried that Larian wouldn't get that because they made games like Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, which are tough as nails, deep choice and consequence. They'll pigeonhole you. They're not afraid to stomp you out. The combat's tough. It's reactive. Like, it's an amazing video game, but it's definitely for a hardcore base. It went on to sell, likely, we don't really have a hard number, but tens of millions of copies. And that's just by video games doing their own thing. And that's as the industry is growing. So if games are able to reach this monstrous level of success by unapologetically being themselves, then why are you taking the power away from the designers, bringing attention to this industry by trying to lower the barrier, even if they now have no say in this, right? I guess the only option would be now games like Elden Ring or a Baldur's Gate 3 could have the option just to switch it off if they want to be truly that hardcore. Like, no, you get no AI support in this game. That could be a back-end option. I think that is an all right compromise in the scheme of things. I just worry about developers who are trying to make a very specific type of experience having these switches all powered on and what that does to disrupt what the game is truly capable of doing. Because again, these things have been available for as long as gaming's been around. Remember strategy guides? Remember instruction booklets that used to come inside the games themselves? Of course, I'm an old head, so I love on Retro Rebound, we do the complete box experience, and I love showing the inside and the manuals and stuff, and it's more of just a fun pastime, but there was a time that was the thing you read in the car on the way home from the game store, and then you'd be like ready to go because the game would just ditch the tutorial. Could AI unlock that potential where there's just no more tutorials? Maybe that is a good thing for gaming. I don't know. But I'll just say that strategy guides were originally a business model in the early days of gaming. You know, you had like Prima, who was showing out with tons and tons of strategy guides before everything moved digital, and guides are still prominent. There's tons and hundreds of thousands of content creators who are doing guide videos, tutorials, tips, tricks. These things that have been readily and honestly more available than ever before. You can find them on TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube. You can literally read game facts. Like, they're all more readily available than ever before, yet to, it seems like Xbox's point, that hasn't moved the needle for people who are having trouble accessing games. So if those options who are so readily available aren't already moving the needle, then why are you risking disrupting the experience for the people who are there, who are helping gaming grow? It just seems very ass backwards, in my opinion. Again, there are some surrounding features. I hope people understood that point. The auto install and being able to say, hey, catch me up, I think that's great. The idea I had of like, hey, can you recommend me some new games? I don't know what to play right now, or what's new in Game Pass. those things I think are great. You want to optimize my user experience to get me into the game faster. That is 100% cool with me. That is kind of what I imagined AI would do, is that is a true assisting tool. But when you start to infiltrate the creative experience, I worry about that a lot more. And look, again, there's a lot of great things with Xbox's plan that I think are very pro-developer. I think, for example, the many screens that they're trying to be on, like, you know, I think developers are excited about that for one very obvious reason. There's way more places to reach people who want to play video games. And I think Xbox's all-screen strategy is getting them closer to reaching more consumers than an AI tool that will just automate your entertainment experience. There are already games that have turned themselves into basically TV shows. Like, we went through that whole wave and still kind of have it from time to time of episodic content. Of course, the pinnacle of that being Telltale. So like, games have found their way to attract all different types of audiences. And like, even the Telltale games, hardcore gamers are playing it. Like, I'm a hardcore gamer. I was playing Telltale games, but then very casual gamers or people who haven't picked up the controller in a while, like, these are great games to help learn about video games, like how the controller works, what button does what. But all this kind of gives me right now, if I were to put the energy for it in a nutshell, is remember when the Game Awards a lot of times would like kowtow to Hollywood and they'd be like, hey, look everyone, like, we got this famous actor here, and we're like, we don't give a damn. And the best shows, and frankly the biggest shows that we've seen from the Game Awards, are when they were unapologetically centered around gaming, and gaming stood on its own 2 feet. I feel like this is something we trip up on so frequently as such a powerful, dominant entertainment industry. You know, obviously there's always room for growth, but why are we trying to bend the rules of the core pillars that got us here to get more people in? There are definitely more ways you can get people into gaming. I'm not denying that, but do you have to change how it actually functions as a video game with an assistant tool? I personally don't agree with it. I don't think it's good for gaming. And since Xbox is in this we're taking feedback role, I don't know if what I say will make any sort of dent or difference, especially when they're planning all of this for GDC and they have Xbox teams lined up ready to talk about it. They're trying to take the approach of like, hey, you know, this is happening whether you like it or not. So that's why I'm going at it like it is happening whether I like it or not. But we can do without Coach Copilot as far as I'm concerned. They talked a little bit about personalization as well in the podcast. I feel like this is an easy route for next generation to bring back avatars. You'll customize those avatars, and that's who your Copilot will be. Because some people are like, why don't they just rebrand back to Cortana? I'm like, probably because you'll be able to make your Copilot Cortana. And yeah, I just, blah. Anyway, it's a touchy subject. I'm not fully anti-AI, but I have my concerns. And so I leave it to you. Maybe you disagree. That is the beauty of good conversation. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this. Sincerely, I always do. I always read the comments, but this one in particular, like, I could see a world where I'm a little bit isolated on this take, but you know, just because how strongly I feel about it. But I'll be curious to see what y'all think about Copilot for gaming, and if there are any long-term impacts that you potentially see in it that maybe aren't as negative as I'm seeing it. But I'll be reading, looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Take great care of yourselves. Have a great weekend, and I will catch you next time around. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.